welcome again. This is our take two so that we can celebrate lives lost and lives recovered. Again, Center for Counseling and Education and Paso por Paso, which is my organization, we are honored to welcome those of you. We have 17 so far, and let's get on with it. So I'm going to welcome you, and just then we're going to have Miss Whitney Houston. Those of you who wish to put your hand over your heart, those who wish to stand, those who wish to do whatever, you're welcome to do so. Stacey Begay is a friend of mine for about 10 years. She's Native American, and I'm not sure, what tribe are you from?
I am half Tohono O'odom on my mom's side and half Navajo on my dad. They were both full-blooded, so I'm 50-50.
Did I know that?
I don't think you did. No.
Because my sister, I have a Native American sister who is Tohono O'odom and Navajo.
Wow. No, you never told me that.
Okay, well, you know, God does beautiful things. And he brought another sister to me today to give us a native, a prayer. It doesn't matter how you want to pray, but who is Tohono O'odom and Navajo, like my real, not blood sister, but my foster sister. So Stacey Begay, please.
Hi, my name is Stacey. I'm an alcoholic. Heavenly Creator, I come to you and I ask that you protect all of us, help our spirits, help our minds, body, and soul. Help us mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. And I ask that you help us speak our truth. And I ask that you help those who have lost lives, that you help those that have suffered from the loss, that they heal. And I ask you to protect us in all that we do moving forward. And I ask that you continue to bless those of us who have recovered, as well as the families of those who have been affected by the things that are negative. And I also ask that you surround us with good energy, light, and just help us to be strong and have that willingness to go forth, especially with spirits that are good and full of light. And I also ask to keep that darkness away from us. Thank you. Aho.
Amen. Aho. So thank you again very much, Stacey. So why are we here today? And why do we celebrate lives lost? We will be celebrating lives recovered in a little bit, but we want to remember that September is Recovery Month, and that is one day after August 31st, which is International Overdose Awareness Day. And that started in about 70 in Australia, and then we got it here a few years later, and now it is an international day of celebration. We do not mourn anymore. We celebrate the lives of those who we lost. And I want you to know that especially some of those who we will be sharing about today, they did not necessarily die on purpose. or they did not necessarily say, I want to die and I'm going to take enough drugs to kill me. As an addict myself, what we do, or what I did when I took drugs, is I just wanted to feel differently. I just didn't want to feel the way that I was feeling. And so I had to find a way to mask those feelings. Our second individual was my aunt in a movie that I did, and she died in the hospital. And it was because, and I'll get to that when we get there, but not all deaths, not all that are on purpose. Many are accidental, and I would say most of them are accidental. We're also here to call for a change in the drug policies around the world and to reduce the overdose toll, to remember and honor the lives of those whose lives were lost due to overdose, to acknowledge our grief, the grief that is felt by friends and family members who are left behind, and to end the stigma of drug-related deaths. Too many times do we have individuals feeling that because they're an addict or an alcoholic, they are less than. I am an addict and an alcoholic
in long-term recovery.
I suffer and continue to suffer from a disease of more. I need more of whatever I have. Addicts and alcoholics, we're not bad people. We are good people who have a bad disease. And sometimes the disease takes over. And that's why we want to make sure that we celebrate those lives.
So what we're looking at is to make sure that we can end the stigma of people who die because of a drug overdose. Remember, we're not bad people. We are good people with a bad disease. For the last many years, overdose deaths in the United States were going down. In 2017, almost 70,000 deaths. And then in 2018, it went down to 67,000 deaths. And in 2019, it went back up over 70,000. And then we had the pandemic. And as that hit, it rose to 91,000, almost 92,000 deaths for overdose. Then in 2021, we had over 100,000 deaths. With the pandemic, we can see on this chart that the overdose deaths, especially from 2020 to January of 2022, really spiked. Those drugs were cocaine, crystal meth, heroin, benzos like Xanax, but the most evil was the fentanyl, which just at full strength, a couple of grains, like grains of salt, could kill a human being. And cocaine was laced with fentanyl. Crystal meth, heroin, and Xanax all had fentanyl in them. And that was one of the major causes of death in the last year. And now we're looking at 300 overdose drug-related deaths per day in 2022. With these 300 deaths per day this year in the United States, you may be asking, is there anything that can be done about this devastating toll on our population and especially on our young people? And the answer is yes, there is. Naloxone, or by its brand name Narcan, one of the brands, is a medicine that will rapidly reverse an opioid overdose. It is an opioid antagonist, which means that it will attach to the opioid receptors and will reverse and block the effects of the opioid or the fentanyl derivative. Naloxone will quickly restore normal breathing to a person if their breathing has slowed or stopped because of an overdose. Now, it has no effect on anyone who does not have an opioid in their system. For the past 12 years, I've been working with A New Path, Parents for Addiction Treatment and Healing. And in the last few years, we've been working on educating the public and giving out doses of this miracle drug, which has saved many lives who would otherwise have died from overdose. So naloxone can and does save lives. A little surprise to me today, we have Gretchen Bergman, who is the executive director and co-founder of A New Path and Moms United. And I believe she will graciously give us some information about this.
Sure. Just to let you know, A New Path, Parents for Addiction Treatment and Healing was started in 1999 to a group of parents who had kids who were struggling with addiction, as well as with their relationship with the criminal justice system. And so we started the organization to reduce the stigma associated with drug use and substance use disorders, as well as to advocate for therapeutic rather than punitive drug policies. And so in 2014, I testified in California for a bill that will allow parents and nonprofit organizations to distribute naloxone, Narcan, because we felt that we are really oftentimes the first responders before the paramedics or anything else. Family members are oftentimes on the scene, and I felt that it was my right and my responsibility to have Narcan on hand, since both of my sons had struggled with addiction to heroin for decades. So that law passed, and we started our Narcan distribution program at that time in San Diego County, as well as across the nation. We called the campaign Ask Mom How to Save a Life. And we have representatives with our Moms United and the War on Drugs campaign who are giving out Narcan, sometimes out of the trunk of their cars or leaving it on the doorstep. In San Diego, we have a more sophisticated system set up. We first started reaching out to parents, but then very quickly probation and the sheriff's department and the unsheltered communities. And now we're targeting all of San Diego County, especially those most at risk, which are the communities of color and poverty. And since 2014, we've distributed 30,000 people, and we've had reported back 2,312 lives reported saved through our program. Of course, we know that there are many more, but these are people who come back and say, I used this to save my neighbor. I used this to save the life of my child, that kind of thing. So Narcan does save lives. It's so easy to use. If you misunderstand that it's an opioid overdose, and you give it to somebody and they don't have opioids in their system, it'll be just like taking water. It's that safe. But if it is an opioid overdose, meaning Vicodin, OxyContin, fentanyl, heroin, it will quickly bring the person back to life, because what happens in an overdose is basically the brain forgets to tell the body to breathe. So the Narcan knocks the opioid off of the receptor and brings the person to life. So we've been saying that everybody should carry it. I mean, even if it's not in your family where you have a problem, walking down the street, you can see somebody that's overdosed and save that person's life. And what we say is people can't find treatment and supportive services if they're dead. So first, let's keep them alive so that we can help to usher them into compassionate and humane treatment.
Thank you very much. So we're going to start the reading of the names. And as we do so, Pamela Jones, are you there, Pamela?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. So we will start the names and just read the names up until your friend, and then share a little bit about your friend.
I'm sorry, Abel Arce, Alicia Salazar, Althea Flint, and Amy Tryon, or Winehouse, I'm sorry. Andy Irons, and Anna Nicole. We have Antonio Arce. Bill was a friend of mine that I knew from Idaho Falls, Idaho. He was 29 at the time that he died from an intentional drug overdose. I don't know if he abused alcohol or drugs up until that time, but he masked his depression for whatever caused him to take his life by a drug overdose on September 21st, 1981. At the time, he was a foster father to 2 teenage sons and a nuclear scientist at Idaho National Engineering Laboratory and a volunteer with the Big Brothers and Sisters of Eastern Idaho for volunteers in corrections. He wrote the manual, I think the year before he died, for the whole that they were using for their on how to deal with as a big brother or big sister, helping young people, steering them in the right direction for their lives. The sad thing about Bill was that he was so good at helping others that he didn't take the time to help himself, or was so stigmatized by the idea that he could have a problem with depression and or drugs or alcohol that he gave into his demons rather than seek out the help and treatment that he could have had to save his life if he had gone that route instead of taking his life when he did. So that was my big thing, is if they had stigmatized depression like drug abuse, it would be so much better for people in our society to be able to seek treatment instead of feeling like they have to hide and masquerade to being something, that rather than dealing with their problems that could save their lives. Because people like Bill gave so much of himself helping others that he led a life dedicated to service, but in the end, he wasn't able to save himself. And that's what's heartbreaking about him. He had so much to give and so much to live for. And it was a senseless loss of life. And for all those who knew him, everybody was just in shock because nobody saw it coming. And I think that was the greatest tragedy of all, that he didn't, the people were there to help him if he had have reached out. If he had have reached out to try to get help, there would have been a lot of people there in his corner, and that didn't happen. So that's I've dealt with that my whole life. When you lose somebody that you care about, you never get over it. So I've lived with that my whole life, and I probably always will. It's something you can't heal from. I'm sorry for crying. I wasn't planning on it, but you never can heal when someone else takes their life, whether it's from drugs or alcohol or whatever. It's just something you never get over that loss. There's no closure. You deal with it, you resign yourself to it, you accept it, and you move on because you have to, but you never forget. And I don't think there's an end to grieving. There's no end to grieving when you lose someone that you love and care about. So that's all I'll say about it. So thanks, John.
Thank you. So a very good friend of mine, opera singer and actor, Frank Basile, is on stage as Quasimodo tonight, and he was not able to be with us. So I'm going to take over for him. Bobby Sheehan, Brad Renfro, Brent Shapiro, Bridget Anderson, Brittany Murphy, Bruce Lee, Candace Norton, and Celeste Holm. Celeste was my Aunt Polly in the movie Tom Sawyer. And unfortunately, at 94 years old, she got some kind of a pneumonia and was in the hospital when her husband, who is Frank Basile, was there. The doctor told Frank to give her medicine, which he did. And he wrote it down on the paper that you're supposed to. A half hour later, a nurse came in while Frank was gone and gave her more medication. Unfortunately, that began her struggle, and she did not overcome that. And so Celeste did pass while she was in the hospital. And just so that you know, she's also an Academy Award winner, and there's the Academy Award that she won for Gentleman's Agreement, and there is the Golden Globe, which she won. I don't remember what it was, but you can look her up on her IMDb page and find more information on what that was. It is my turn for some of my friends. Chad Blackburn, Chet Allen, Chris Farley, Christopher Penn, China Joan Marie Laurer, Corey Monteith, Damon L. Hernandez Piano, Dana Plato. You may remember Dana from Different Strokes is the name of the show that she was in. Most noted for, I was her very last manager and had managed to get her a play that she was going to be in. She had a son, and her son was going to join her while she was driving her big Winnebago, going to be doing a tour, and she would be driving her Winnebago with the rest of the tour, but sleep in the Winnebago so that she could have time to be with her son. Unfortunately, the day before Mother's Day, which is the day she passed in 1999, she was on the Howard Stern show. Howard Stern wanted to take a hair sample or have her urinate in a cup so that they could find out if she had or had not been 10 years sober, that she had told me. My job was not to keep her sober, but I did talk to her about my sobriety, and I was proud of her for her sobriety, for her attempts at sobriety. And we did talk about sobriety and the importance of it. Unfortunately, the next day, she fell into a deep depression, and she took quite a bit of, quite a few different pills. And while she was dying, her boyfriend recorded her voice instead of calling 911. Tyler Lambert is her son. 11 years to the day, Tyler, unfortunately having addiction on both sides of his family, did have a major problem with drugs. And in a drug-induced rage, 11 years to the day of his mother's passing, he shot himself. And this is Tyler at 15. Danny Gans, David Arce, David Tirado, Dee Dee Ramone, Diane Linkletter, DMX Earl Simmons, Dorothy Dandridge, Eddie Guerrero, Eddie Griffin, Elvis Presley, Eric Douglas. Eric was a party buddy of mine. He was the half brother to Michael Douglas and the son of Kirk Douglas. His two half siblings were both famous, very well off, and producers in their own right. Eric loved drugs like I did. We partied together. We had a good time. He brought the drugs. I brought the friends. And unfortunately, he died of a cocaine overdose, which is very hard to do. Cedric, did you make it in? Well, I guess he didn't. Pamela Weeks is a friend of mine from Georgia, and Pamela is also a drug and alcohol counselor. Would you read the following names?
Oh, yes, I will be happy to. Thank you. It's good to see you and everyone tonight.
That's my friend Cedric.
Frederick Prince, George Welby, aka Big George, Greg Galadro, Hank Williams Sr., Harold Hunter, Heath Ledger, Helen Doherty Fade, Howard Hughes, Hugh O'Connor, Ian Fisher.
Thank you. And Ian Fisher.
Ian Fisher, excuse me.
No problem.
Thanks.
Ian passed away this year, about just a short while ago. Cedric is here in this photo, giving him a 2-year cake. He had 2 years clean and sober. He moved out of town and moved to another part which didn't have a strong support system for him. And unfortunately, he passed due to an overdose. Justine, do not see Justine. I have my friends, 7 of them who have died of overdose, and now I have an 8th. Ike Turner, Inger Stevens, Jackson Pollock, James Hayden, James Owen Sullivan, the Rev, Janice Joplin, and Jared Bowie. Jared was my god nephew. His mother was a very dear friend of mine. She passed away. And Justine and Jared were very young when, Jared was about 15 and his sister was 14. Unfortunately, they didn't have anybody to go to, so they were left with friends, and some of them were not the best friends and the best influence on them. Justine, she's just now celebrating 3 years sober, but caused a lot of emotional conflict in her life, of course, and had to give her son up for adoption, who is now 18 years old. All of that, Jared, figuring that he was the man of the house, was trying to keep the family together and was unable to do so. He moved out when he was 17 and a half and made 6 babies. and loved his children. And this is his youngest. And on August 27th this year, Jared died of a fentanyl overdose. Unfortunately, Jared is now one of the 300 a day that are dying from the fentanyl overdose. Jared Bowie. Jaredy, are you here? No, but Sunshine, how are you, my friend?
Had to unmute. I'm just lovely. Thank you for asking. How are you? I'm actually having a tough time right now.
I'm sorry.
It's not your fault. I just hate all this death and all this fentanyl and all these drugs and all this lack of education and knowledge, and it just breaks my heart. But I'm okay. Thank you for asking.
Would you be able to read some names?
Of course.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Where are we? We're starting right here. Okay.
Jean-Michel Basquiat.
Thank you. Jean-Michel Basquiat. The
Jean-Paul
singing. Oh, that's the
Marie
singing
Decker.
nun.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Okay. Okay, the singing nun. Jeff Conway. Jeff Cullen. Jessica Rennenbach. Jesus Salazar. Give me a second. Jim Morrison. Jimi Hendrix. Joey J. Joey St. John. John Belushi. John Cassavetes, John Ritchie, aka Sid Vicious, John Entwistle, John Morris.
John Morris is a friend of mine, Jaredy Morris. It's her brother. And John died in 2019 of alcohol. He died of alcohol poisoning. His mother had passed, and he said that when his mother passed, he lost hope for life. Their father was doing his best, but John decided that things were too difficult and would drown himself in the bottle. My friend Butch Patrick, how are you doing today?
I'm fine, John. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here, and we're going to hear from him in a little bit. But we have a shared friend that he's going to talk about. But before he does, he's going to read a few names like we have in the past.
Keith Moon, Judy Garland, Kenneth Williams, Kevin Lloyd, Kevin McConville, Lonnie O'Grady. Lonnie. I'll touch on her twice because she's going to be in my conversation a little bit later. Johnny and I both were the early clients of Mary Grady. Mary Grady MGA was a upstart little agency in the early 60s, and it became the child agency in Hollywood. I actually lived with Mary Grady when my mom moved back east with my baseball playing stepfather got traded. And I spent some time with the Grady household with not only Don and Lonnie and Mary Lou and Mary herself. Lonnie had a very deep voice. It's the thing that I always enjoyed about Lonnie. She had a great sense of humor and her deep voice. I would always make fun of her. And I was, kind of taken in. I was sort of an adopted kid at the Grady household, but Lonnie was a wonderful person, and Star of Eight is Enough. Being Don's little sister, it was a period in around Hollywood where a lot of things were going on, and I'll touch on that later. But Lonnie was a wonderful person. I have nothing but great memories of her, and it was very, very sad of her passing. She had some issues, and unfortunately, they basically got the best of her, and she was, I believe, using and drinking. I really wasn't that close to her at her passing because I had moved on and things had changed. But Lonnie, love you, miss you, and hope you're in a better place.
Thank you very much, Butch. Valerie, creator of the Anissa Jones Remembrance Society. And Valerie is going to read the next few names.
Lenny Bruce, Margot Hemingway, Margot Kidder, Marilyn Monroe, Mary Anissa Jones.
So why did you start the Anissa Jones Remembrance Society?
Oh my goodness. Because I have been a fan of hers since 1977 when I first saw Family Affair in reruns. And a little girl that I was with at the time when we were watching the show told me in a very unkind way what had kind of happened with her. And I asked my mom about it later that night. And she said, well, she just took a little bit too much medicine and went to sleep. And then God decided that he was going to take her up to heaven and make her an angel. So she explained it to me in a much more kinder way than this little girl next door. And she was a really mean little girl. And I hope she grew up to be a lot nicer. She didn't really say very nice things about how she went. But anyway, it always bothered me. But my mom said, in order to keep people's memories alive, you always got to keep them in your heart and never, ever forget them. So the very next time I watched Family Affair, I remember when I was a kid, I was 9 years old, and I remember looking up at the ceiling and saying, I'll never forget you. And I never have. And through the years, I mean, for the next 3 years, I wore pigtails. I watched reruns through all the years, and I thought of Anissa. And in 2014, I decided to create the Family Affair tribute page along with the Anissa Jones page, and then we turned it into a group. And now we've been going for 8 years strong. We have people who make posts every day about her, remember her, talk about her. We're a very peaceful, loving group. There's a guy who makes videos about her every day. And at one point, I'd like to show you something that we even made t-shirts. We had t-shirts made. Can you see that? It says, we remember Anissa. We had these t-shirts made. I'm wearing one right now. I was told Anissa really liked purple. And Mrs. Beasley is here too. I know that Buffy the character always carried around, but I bet Anissa was probably ready to get rid of this doll by the end of the show. But she'd probably laugh about it today. But I just always want to keep her memory alive and honor the bright and light and soul that she seemed to be. And I know she didn't mean to die, just like you were saying. I think it was a complete accident. I mean, she was 18 years old. And so it's just really important to me to keep her memory alive and to, keep it out there so people can join the group if they want to and come in and see happy posts. And if they feel like mourning, they can do that too. But, it's just a place for people to congregate. Remember this beautiful little soul she was. She was so bright, so cheery, that little voice, those little freckles, just everything about her, So I just love Anissa Jones. I'm like a super fan and just want to keep her memory going in any way I can. And that's why I created it. I didn't get a name in, but I did lose my mom to addiction on August 10th of 99 to heroin addiction. So I know all the pain of this too well. And
go ahead and give us her name.
Her name is Susan.
Susan.
Yes.
And
Susan
her last
Alden.
name?
Alden.
Susan Alden.
Yes.
Please remember to send me that so we'll get her in next year.
I would love that.
And we're remembering her just today.
Okay, thank you so much.
Absolutely. That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Now I've got one of my very, very dear friends. I just stayed at his house 2 days ago, but he was not at his house because he's in Vegas. You can see he's in a dance studio. He's a choreographer, actor, dancer, and a very dear friend. And that is Mick Thompson. And he's going to read names after he shares about his friend, Michael Jackson.
Hello. Hi. Johnny, so nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me. Hello, everybody. Yeah, Michael Jackson. I was really kind of nervous when my best friend who choreographed for Michael asked me to come and audition for him. And I was at the time didn't know I was, at all funky or poppy. I was just kind of like sort of doing the old blonde thing, when I was in LA. And then so I was kind of a little nervous, but I went to the audition anyway. And anyway, long story short, after the audition, Michael not only cast me, but he told LaBelle that he wanted me to be his shadow. That means that wherever Michael is, he needs me to be like either on this side of him or this side of him. And that was like, I was so surprised. I was like, really? And so it gave me a little bit of more personal time with Michael, because he kind of gave me his own, gave me some notes of when he sees stuff. So I was able to kind of have a little bonding time with him. And he just was always really, really super professional. I mean, he was always on time. He worked always really hard. As you can see, whenever he was in concert, I mean, he gave his all to making sure that people felt he was never going to hold back, And so everything was really going great for him. And then I started getting kind of wondering what was going on when back in about 15 years ago, he was coming to Las Vegas to start up to do his like a 5-year, what they call it when they stay in Vegas, like Celine Dion. They were building a new theater for him, and he was going to come and do all new stuff, And he was working with the choreographer, and he was going to bring back his team of dancers that he enjoyed working with, that he knew, and he was going to be elevating all his new music. But when they were going to work, LaBelle would come home early, and I would be like, "What's up?" Because I would go visit him at the hotel where he was staying while they were in pre-production. And he said, "Michael, we did a little ballet warm up, and then LaBelle, the choreographer, was also kind of an addict, and they started kind of popping pills now instead of working out, and they were just kind of like getting a little lethargic and just kind of just doing a ballet warm up and not really rehearsing." And I was just kind of like, oh shoot, And then the next day or the next couple of weeks, he would come back and he was like, he showed me all these pills and he was like, "Michael really likes this one." And I was like, oh my gosh, what's going on? It was really freaking me out. I was like, you spent a whole day talking about different drugs or something? I was like, this is just not right, But nobody was really doing anything about it. And LaBelle, being his choreographer, should have been there to kind of like say, but they were both kind of addicts now. So things were getting a little bit spiraling out of control. And then Kenny Ortega, who's from LA, was noticing all this stuff. And he just said, "Stop. We got to fire LaBelle. You need to go back into your box. We don't want to do anything out there right now. You need to make some money. You have to do stuff for your estate. You're going to lose everything." Kind of just told him that we don't want a new Michael. We need you to go back into doing a world concert, go back to do Smooth Criminal, Thriller, all of the stuff that everybody knows and loves about you. Don't go and be in your creative outlet, and just do. That's where This Is It came in. And so he was kind of just like forced to go back and do what he really didn't have a passion to go do. It was not his idea to go back and do This Is It. He wanted to, continue, evolving. And then, as you see, then LaBelle was gone. They weren't going to do the new show in Vegas. Michael went back to LA, and then I just kept hearing stuff on the news that, actually, his choreographer that took on the part, Travis, because Travis and LaBelle were partners, and Travis took over the job and was kind of mentioning to me that, Michael passed out now at rehearsal and this and that and that. And I was like, oh my gosh. So, and plus Stacey Walker, who I introduced to Travis she was one of my girls at Disney World. And when Travis saw her dancing, he picked her up and said, "That's my new assistant." And they've been together for like 20 years. And everything that they do. So Stacey is really close to me, and she was just kind of telling me what was going on. And it was just, then they were getting new dancers. They didn't want to bring in anybody from the past. They wanted to get all new young dancers and stuff like that. But and Michael wasn't really wanting that. He didn't want to have all these new people that he didn't really connect with. So it was very distant. The feeling that I felt when I saw the movie, that the dancers were like, "Oh, Michael, Michael," but Michael was just kind of disconnected because of himself. But then he wasn't really enjoying the experience of just being around all these people when he was he really wanted to work with the dancers. I was with him for 9 years, you know. So it was really hard for me when I found out that things were just falling apart, and then you started hearing, you know, as we all heard, the news about him starting to kind of, you know, get, you know, taking the drugs, and then having the doctor give him, you know, all that stuff that happened when that ended up Michael overdosing. The thing that I just had to keep thinking about was, what was Michael's message to everybody? What did he really want to bring to the world? It was always about love, you know. He just had such a great spirit about him. He was never creepy or anything. I mean, he was very eccentric because he just a lot of stuff that was kind of going on from his childhood, you know. But and I'm sure when he was being betrayed from some of the closest friends that he had, but that he actually loved and cared for, the young people in the Bible, I mean, Jesus had sort of the same kind of thing. He got betrayed by those that he loved. So it's just part of life, you know. Seems like everyone has to experience a little bit of this, but it was just all in the media. But I think it was just bringing him down, you know, because he was like, you know, I'm now in a box. The kids that I love are betraying me. You know, my dad just wants me to keep whatever. It just was sad to see how he ended it, because it was not a happy experience for him, you know, and he did so much to try to bring happiness into it. So I try to honor him because I've been able to pick up from where he left off to bring his message of love. And I'm the choreographer for a concert that's called The Ultimate Tour, The Ultimate Thriller. And I'm also a choreographer for Fallon, who is the female art tribute artist. And they both have huge concerts. And The Ultimate Thriller actually carries the same band that Michael had and the same musical director. So I was honored to be able to go and do these concerts. They haven't been touring that much because of the COVID thing, but it's a great place to do when The Ultimate Thriller goes out on tour. I mean, the crowds just love it. We do the iconic choreography, but this is a different thing because, you know, now we're giving tribute to what he, you know, was known for, but it's not Michael, it's a tribute artist. But I just love it because I always want to make sure that the spirit of him is felt in these concerts, and it does. People just feel his love, and they feel like he's there. And I know that he's trying really hard to keep people in America and the world in a better place. That's what his music was about. And so that was my experience with Michael.
Thank you, Mick.
Yes.
And I can tell you that as a child actor, I met him, and he was going through his puberty stage at the time, 14, 15. And actually, I was more into his sister than talking to him. We were on a 747 going from Los Angeles to New York City, and the whole Jackson family was there. And I was there as well in first class. And we had a good time on that 5-hour flight. But would you mind reading some more of these names, please?
Yes. Michael Jackson, Mike Bloomfield, Michael M., Mike Starr, Nathan Egan, Paul Gardner.
Nathan Egan.
Yes, Nathan Egan
is a friend of mine, and he died in 2019. His father and I served a mission together in Portugal.
Really?
And that's Nathan. And
he had an overdose?
Yes, while he was in treatment.
Oh my gosh.
Go ahead, give me a couple more names, please.
Okay, so then we got Peaches Geldof, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Prince Rogers Nelson, River Phoenix, Rob Pilatus, Robert Pastorelli, Rodney King, Russell Tyrone Jones, Old Dirty Bastard, Scott Newman, Scotty Beckett, Sean Sofer, Sid Vicious, Sky McCall Batursiak, Skylar Lynn Holloway, Talitha Getty, Ted Demi, Thomas Kincaid, Tim Horton, Tim Hovey, Tom Petty, Tommy Dorsey, Tyler Lambert, Virginia Hill, and Whitney Houston.
Thank you.
I don't want to have people die anymore. I don't want people to die, dude. Like, I don't want it. Don't die. That's all I have to say. Don't die, dude. It's annoying. It ruins everyone around you's life as much as it ruins yours. If you die, everyone else's heart dies. Don't die. Stupid. So drugs make you die. Don't die.
Now we want to change the mood a little bit, and we want to bring the second part of our day here, and that is to celebrate lives that have been recovered from drugs and alcohol.
So we will continue this portion of our program with a celebration of lives recovered. September is Recovery Month. Recovery Month has been around for about 40 years. SAMHSA, which is the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Agency, I got that right, and they celebrate, and we've been celebrating, like I said, for about 40 years, and the government and states and local municipalities should celebrate Recovery Month because
celebrating 25 years of recovery September 25th. So we hope you don't have to send me anything, but you can make a donation to Paso por Paso.
If you would like to donate to Paso por Paso, all you need to do is aim your cell phone camera on the QR code here, and you will be sent directly to the donation page. Or you can go to www.johnnywhitaker.com and click on the gallery, and you'll be sent to the photos page. And below the photos is the donation page. Now, if you donate $30 or more, you may choose any photo in the gallery, and it will be sent to you as our thank you to you for your donation on behalf of Paso por Paso. And now, after that little, sorry about that little commercial, we will continue with the celebration of lives lost and lives recovered with this portion of the Recovery Month. So I've given you a welcome and let you know a little bit about September being National Recovery Month. And now we have a very special guest, a very long-time friend of mine, a recovery person and friend and fellow child actor, grew up together with Mary Grady. You might remember him best as Eddie Munster from the Munsters. And hey, Butch,
take it away. You got about 10 minutes.
Okay, my name is Butch Patrick, but I identify as Patrick, and I am an alcoholic. This is kind of interesting because sometimes when people come up and say, "What have you been doing since the Munsters?" Well, let's try to encapsulate 60, almost nearly 60 years in a few minutes. That's just impossible to do. But I'm going to give the fast 10-minute version of my sobriety the best I can. First of all, I started acting in 1960, as we spoke briefly with the Mary Grady Agency, and I worked in the industry about 15 years. But in the 60s to the mid 70s was a wonderful time to be in the entertainment industry. I guess it was really never a bad time to be in the entertainment industry, but as a kid growing up in that window of opportunity, a couple things came into play. Number one, you took on responsibilities, you were treated as a grown-up, you did grown-up things, and you made grown-up money. And one of the things for me as a 10, 12, 13-year-old kid is I was very enamored with the hippie lifestyle. The kind of early 60s, it went from like the Beehive to the late 60s, it went to the Summer of Love and Long Hair. And I was very, very much looking forward to getting old enough to experiment with drugs and alcohol. I wanted to party. And the business, although I was in the movie business, really had nothing to do with my desire to do what I wanted to do. I probably would have done it. In fact, I know I would have done it had I become the architect that I was thinking about being, or had I had the determination and the resolve and the dedication to become a race car driver, which is what I aspired to be, because I thought the money from working in the business would lead to, I was a good driver and I had fast cars, and every kid wanted to be something outrageous, and mine was a race car driver, which it never developed into that. My turning point in 1969 was I drove a friend to an interview for a movie. And as it turns out, the producer director walked out and spotted me, brought me in for the interview. 3 days later, I was in Brazil for 3 months with no teacher and no parent, just as an actor, as an adult at 16. I looked about 14. And during that 3-month window, as my sister likes to say, at my 1 year chip ceremony, I have almost 12 years sobriety now. At my 1 year chip ceremony, she said, he left as Richie Cunningham and he came back as John Lennon, which pretty much sums it up. That particular year of 1969, the summer of 69 was a crazy time. And I was out there leading the charge. For me, I was never comfortable in my own skin being a celebrity. I wanted to be accepted as a regular guy. And the way I did that was to throw parties, have beer, have pot, have Coke, have, be the party go-to guy. And I did it really well. And I did it for 41 years. At first it was fun. It was great. It was this, early 70s, everything was happening. But it soon took all my money, number one, which it does, it's an expensive habit and a lifestyle. And number two, you found yourself alienating people because as you become more inebriated and a bigger alcoholic and, a drug addict, you really people don't want to be around you once the party's over and you're not supplying them with stuff and they're not your yes men anymore and you don't have anything to offer them. It becomes quite a struggle, which led to a lot of issues with a lot of different things that I won't get into. Because I have limited time and I don't really like looking back on my sobriety is all about looking forward, and looking in the rearview mirror, in old cliche, is not really one of the things I do. But I was very, very lucky to find a higher power came into my life. Literally, I was on the East Coast in 2010, the summer of 2010, and I had hit bottom. And I had sort of dilly-dallied around and inquired to a few good friends, Paul Peterson, a mutual friend of John and myself, with a minor consideration, another good friend, Chris Wren, who I went to school with. And he had gotten sober about 15 years before I did. And I used to reach out to him occasionally. Well, what happened was a friend, I was in Philadelphia, he was in California. And I said, I think I'm ready to enter a treatment center, but I don't know what to do. And he opened up a Yellow Pages to the page opened to itself. It was to O, and it said Oasis Treatment Center. And the gentleman who ran that treatment center his name is Jim A. He sponsored me. He accepted me. He wanted to take a kid actor who hadn't been through the merry-go-round of celebrity rehabs and rehabilitations, and someone who hadn't been, that didn't take it seriously. And the fact that I had never been to one fit his criterion. So he told me, I've been open for 22 years. If I can get you sober, I've worked with 8,000 people in 22 years. If you do what I say and you learn this and you do it right and you work the steps, you can reach millions of people and you can lead by example. And he told me, he said, and I don't think you can do it. And he basically sort of gave me a challenge. And here I am coming up November 21st, will be 12 years sober. And one of the greatest things, like listening to this meeting, is how tough it was to look at that list of people and know so many of them, and to know why me, why am I here? And it has to be my higher power. That there's a bigger plan than we're privy to, because believe me, for 41 years I tried my darndest to basically party myself to death. And it got to be, and late in, when I hit 50 and there was no future and there was no work, and it was really, I was hoping that something would happen to me, and I wouldn't kill myself, but I was trying very hard to do something that would end my life. And I guess I was trying to drink myself to death at that time. I got the education at Oasis, and Jim, by the way, was the original interventionist for A&E. Everybody in the place was they came in as a client, and they became counselors, and they became, they educated themselves. They were alcoholics and addicts, and they learned how to help other people. It saved my life. And now that I've never turned down a speaker meeting, I have my health, I have a life, I have success, I have all the things that the promises and the steps promised and, you know, and the traditions, it's all come true. As John was saying earlier, there's a lot of times when the stigma attached to alcoholism is something that, you know, you don't want to let people know, you know, your situation, and you try to mask it. Well, one of the great things about today, it's not like the old AA in the 30s and 40s, but it was anonymous. I mean, it's still good. If you want to remain anonymous, that's fine. But the stigma isn't there. So now people can reach out, and there's so many places that can help you take that first step towards recovery. And that's what I specialize in. In social media, I have a very large following, and I reach a lot of people who have issues, because there's probably not a family in the country that doesn't have someone, whether it's a cousin, a second cousin, or somebody that needs help. It's a epidemic, no doubt about it. Whether it's fentanyl, whether it's this, whether it's that, the opiate epidemic is real, and it's there, and it's killing people, as John made reference to. So although I don't sponsor people in a typical way, and I don't run a typical program, I do what it takes. I hit my knees. I have a higher power. I help people, and having been a child actor and now being an adult, a sober adult, I think I can help people that whether they're in the industry or not in the industry. The industry didn't do it. It just gave me the visibility. And unfortunately, a lot of times the negative aspect of being a celebrity comes into play, where sometimes things would go unnoticed, like, you know, you get arrested or something bad happens, and that in itself compounds the situation. So I would like to thank John for allowing me to speak. If there's any questions or anything I can do, I'm always available. And I appreciate John. You're doing great work. I'm with you, buddy. And we're both Croft alumni. We're both Mary Grady alumni. We have a lot in common. And I always admire your sobriety. You're way ahead of me, but I'm trying to catch up. Thanks so much.
Thank you again, Butch Patrick, for your wonderful words of recovery and your support with us today. Our closing speaker for this program is a very, very special man to me. He is my sponsor. He has 60 plus years of recovery. His name is George Marciano. I'm just really proud of him. Really want you to hear from him.
George is not very young. He's 83 years young, but a beautiful man. Was there when my mother died. Just a wonderful man. And he's going to share a little bit of his story, or however he wants to. And when he's done, we will end with him. He's an elder in the Mormon faith, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, in English or Spanish, whichever he chooses, to close us off. Jorge.
Yes, if you let me speak in Spanish and you translate, will be better, because my English is very limited.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Está bien.
Okay. My name is George. I am an alcoholic. And I will, voy a tratar de ser breve.
I'm going to try to be brief.
Con todos ustedes. Voy a hablar un minuto por cada año de sobriedad.
But I'll do that by 1 minute for each of my recovery years.
Naturalmente. Espero no se aburran de mi charla.
But I've learned that it's better not to bore everybody with an hour worth of your time.
Well,
So
el programa para mí ha sido el mejor negocio que hice en mi vida.
The program, as I see it, has been the best way of life for my life.
Llegué joven a este programa, tenía 25 años.
When I started, I had 25 years.
Pero tenía serios problemas con el alcohol y el tabaquismo.
But I had very serious problems with tobacco and
por 60 años y unos meses más.
And I am proud to say that I have 60 years and a few months of sobriety.
Pienso que las herramientas más importantes del programa
for me, the most important tools of the program are,
están en los 12 pasos.
and they find themselves in the 12 steps.
Y gracias a Dios,
Thanks to those 12 steps,
gracias a este programa,
thanks to this program,
todas las cosas en mi vida han cambiado.
everything in my life has changed for the better.
Y el mejor negocio que hice en mi vida
And the best job I've ever had in my life
fue dejar de beber.
was to stop drinking.
Por eso me siento inmensamente agradecido
And for this, I feel very grateful
de Dios
to God
y de todos los amigos de Alcohólicos Anónimos.
and to all my friends in Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yo espero que si alguien está necesitando dejar las drogas o el alcohol,
And I hope that anyone who would like to stop drinking or using drugs,
no se olvide que estamos para servirle.
do not forget that we are all here to help you.
Y bien, esas serían mis palabras, unas pocas, pero de todo corazón.
And with all my heart, I share these things.
Y les agradezco el haberme escuchado. Que Dios les bendiga.
And God bless you. Thank you for letting me share.
And now, George Marciano, elder in the LDS Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, will give us the benediction. Jorge.
Bendito y amoroso Padre,
Loving and blessed Father in heaven,
te damos gracias esta tarde
we thank thee this afternoon
por haber tenido la oportunidad
for having had the opportunity
de compartir nuestra fortaleza,
to share our strength,
nuestras esperanzas
our hopes,
y nuestros momentos difíciles que hemos vivido
and those difficult times that we have lived
como consecuencia del alcoholismo.
as a consequence of alcohol and drugs.
Te damos gracias por todas las bendiciones que derrama sobre nosotros.
We're thankful for all of the blessings that thou hast blessed us with.
Te damos gracias también, bendito Padre, por tu Santo Espíritu.
And thank you also, dear Father, for your gracious and loving spirit.
Te suplicamos desde lo más profundo de nuestros corazones
And we ask thee from the bottom of our hearts
que bendigas a todos aquellos que claman tu presencia
and bless all those who would pray and ask for your presence.
Te suplicamos también por todas las personas que están sufriendo
And we ask also a blessing on all of those who are suffering
por la adicción en las drogas,
for drug addiction
por el alcohol
and for
por todas
alcoholism
y por las enfermedades naturales
and the other natural illnesses
que nos afectan a muchos seres humanos.
that affect many human beings.
Todo esto te lo pedimos en el nombre de tu Hijo amado,
And all of these things we ask and thank thee for in the name of your Son.
Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 Thank you very much. Please tell your friends, as we will for Val next year. We make sure to get a picture of your mother, and we will add her to our list. And anybody else, thank you, Stacey, for your opening prayer, and Padrino for your closing prayer, and all of those who shared, and also Butch for your sharing of your story, Mick, and who else? Pamela, and all of those who joined us this day. I thank you very much. God bless you all.
Have a good night. Bye.
Johnny, thank you so much for the invite. You'll have no idea how much this blesses me. And I'll do this again next year and invite a whole bunch of people.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much for being here today, for participating And if you're just watching our final version, thank you for watching and sharing with us those lives lost and lives recovered. Next year, 2023, we will be doing it once again. And if you have a friend or a family member that you would like to have remembered, please let them be celebrated by sending your loved one's name and a photo to Overdose Awareness 0831 @gmail.com, or my office, Whitaker @pasoporpaso.org, or my fan mail at johnny@johnnywhitaker.com. We hope that we can see all of you and more of you to celebrate those lives lost and also lives recovered 2023. God bless. Have a beautiful day. And remember, make someone else's day. Be a friend to them.